It's another Monday morning. I don't know if you're aware of that, Sharon. It's Monday. And you're muted. Oh, you've not done that for a while.
I haven't done that for a while. It's Monday, Christian.
There we go. That's why. So it's Monday.
It's Monday. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Project Failure Files, the series for anyone who manages people, projects, or processes for a living. I am Sharon Weaver, CEO of Smarter Consulting.
And I am Christian Buckley, founder of Collab Talk, and welcome to another episode of this series where Sharon and I explore leadership and management topics from the perspective of what not to do. Leave your mic muted.
Leave your mic muted on a Monday morning. Mm-hmm. So let me start with a familiar question. How much of your week is spent reporting on your work versus actually doing the work? Because today we're going to talk about drowning in reports.
Back when I was a project manager, that was a thing. I think there was this realization at some point where you're like, I'm spending my time more doing the reporting than helping actually move the projects along. What are we actually doing here? We've created these technological monstrosities of these tools that do all these things, and it can get away from us sometimes. So you have those 5 different status reports for 5 different stakeholders. That's a slightly different problem, but they're all asking for the same information, just formatted slightly differently.
Well, yeah, they all need the same information, but in different ways, for different things, for different answers. And ultimately, what is really just supposed to be kind of openness and transparency turns into reporting overload, all kinds of different formats and cadences. And like you said, the same information formatted in multiple ways. And ultimately, it becomes a lot of effort and duplicated effort.
We'll get into some of the storytelling and share some of the experiences, because having run teams, built and run PMOs and analyst teams, this is just one of those pains. It irks me around that. And occasionally you're able to run into a leadership team that understands that problem and helps you to lay down the law. No, this is the way that it shall be. But the irony of all of that is the more time that you spend building the reports, the less time you have managing the actual projects those reports are based on. That's
Accurate.
Just the truth.
Accurate. No, I mean, it's kind of the hidden cost, right? Is that ultimately your reporting is supposed to help and support the execution, not replace the time that you're spending on it. But if it's not coordinated, ultimately it's draining your time, your focus, your energy. And ultimately, if you're spending more time on reporting than you are on executing the tasks that you're supposed to be doing, then you don't really have visibility. You just have a problem.
I've seen teams, I've led teams where we spend hours and hours every week reformatting the same reports, the same data into different formats and into different tools just to meet different stakeholder preferences. And that's not providing insight. I mean, that's just busy work. You're filling your time because some executive somewhere doesn't like the tool where it's mostly automated and prefers the output over in this other format. So you've got Excel sheets and PowerPoint slides all outside of the reports, the dashboards, which are mostly automated.
Yeah. Well, and the solution isn't less, right? The solution isn't do less reporting, because ultimately that really does need to happen. But you need to come up with a smarter way to communicate, maybe a single source of truth, maybe clear dashboards, maybe people work together to talk about, here's the things we all need, so that maybe we can report it once or twice in 1 or 2 different ways that kind of covers everything, so that we all have some shared expectations around what's getting reported and how it's done.
How about instead of a whole new report that has this other format that's largely manual, we just add a couple columns?
Great idea.
Yeah, maybe, things like that. But yeah, I mean, sometimes it is about pushing back. Obviously, you need to be diplomatic about it, but helping stakeholders understand the trade-offs, that they truly understand, those that aren't sadistic, that understand how much time it's taking to go do those one-offs, then what solved it. I was just thinking of one story. Sorry, I'm just briefly here. What solved that problem was doing kind of a cost center and applying like how much time that they were costing and billing them for that operational time. That was a wake-up call for some leaders that just did not understand how much time and money they were wasting on this rework. And so when we did this chargeback model, suddenly they perked up and they started to understand what that was.
Well, yeah, I mean, like everything, every extra thing that you take on, including reporting is not free. It comes at a cost, even if it's a time cost. And ultimately, if you don't protect your team, their bandwidth, and your own bandwidth as a leader, then ultimately, and I'm going to be honest, I've seen plenty of corporate places where reporting becomes the project.
Right.
And unless you're on a team where your whole job is to do reporting, let's be honest, nobody's signing up for that. Yeah. Nobody wants this.
One other angle of this too is that you as the team lead, as a leader, a manager over that, if your people feel like you're not going to bat to push back on this, that's going to help that, or that's going to hurt your team, your leadership ability. People might start going deaf to some of your own tweaks and anyway, decisions you make. They might anyway, I'm not saying it's going to happen.
It does. It absolutely does.
Yeah.
Why do we need another meeting, Sharon?
So we're gonna get into that and share some of those experiences. As always, should be a great and practical conversation. So be sure to share your experiences, comment, let us know what you thought about ours. If we left something out, a wisdom nugget that you have out there, drop it on us in the comments. We love to hear back. We will respond back as well. So we'd love to, and we need to get back into that mode. We need to find some folks and interview them about their horror stories and what they did to get away from bad managers and all that kind of fun stuff. That's kind of, we've talked about doing that. We need to do that.
Find people that are available on a Monday.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we can pre-record. We can get some other stuff back on it. We can make it happen.
I believe you. You. All right, let's get started with some definitions.
I mean, when I was thinking about this, when we first talked about this like a year and a half ago and put it on our list of topics that we've been going through, folks, seriously, we've been doing this for over 2 years now, around 2 years.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking.
Yeah, I don't know. We're coming up on at least on the 2-year mark, if not just past it. But we had compiled a list and we've added to it of different topics. This is one of the early ones we talked about because it's been this massive pain historically. We've both experienced this, but where you have these multiple reporting requests, these requirements that come out. And so again, having run PMOs, project organizations have been most of my career, and where you have different stakeholders in that are asking for data in different formats. And sometimes it just makes sense. You're dealing with, if you're dealing with the internal corporate teams, you've got HRs looking for data that's slightly different than what operations might be looking for on projects that you're helping with. But for most IT projects, and you have different divisions that you might be working on, there's no reason to have different flavors of the project status report, of the detailed reports. And so where it works the best is where you're able to come up with a standard and push it through a change management model for any requests, any exceptions over and above that model, and bring it to the rest of the community. I love that. I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit around this, Sharon, but
go for it.
Again, passion project, a topic here. But bring it back to the governance body oversight, where you have people who are representing each of those other stakeholder groups, and show how ridiculous some of the requests are for custom reporting. And when you start talking about the time it'll take, the effort involved in doing that, for what, and you're going to have other people, other stakeholders jumping to your fence saying, why? What does that drive? How are you not just doing that yourself? Pull your own insights out of that. Look for the raw data. Like we do that. You don't need a whole nother. We can't lose a person a full day during the week just doing re-reporting. Like it's asinine.
Yeah.
And so, I with a lot of this, I mean, it starts off with good intent, but it goes downhill quickly.
Yeah. No, and I was just thinking back to like when we first, like you said, when we first started talking about this. And I think, a lot of reporting is exactly that. It's answering questions. It's, giving snapshots. It's helping, the next person in the chain do their job. It's also trying to manage and control, everything from time to budget to resources, right? We're trying to keep our head around this, right? Understand where we're at, make sure that we've got everything allocated correctly. And ultimately, I think what ends up happening is there's so many people trying to solve that problem, trying to give that information to people, to your point that, it takes so much time away from what you're actually trying to do that eventually it becomes kind of its own thing. And so this whole idea of doing this topic was, if that's the failure way, right? We talk about project failure file. So this is the wrong way to do things. It's just create reporting for the sake of reporting. Because somebody needs a different report. Somebody needs a different thing. And I think part of this too is that there are certain people who are really good at creating reports and creating analysis. And there are other people that is not their strength. And so ultimately the burden sometimes tends to shift to a specific person who's really good at it. And so I think this whole topic was really, what's a better way? What's a better way to really make sure that people have what they need than to just keep spitting out yet one more report? I think in the age of AI, this is really timely too.
Yeah, and it's also, we just talked last week around communicating to leadership teams. And that is, this is a great segue into this topic. Because again, I mean, when reporting shifts from delivering insight, like what is the actual value of what's being reported here, to satisfying formatting preferences, it stops being valuable. Mm-hmm. What do I need to get from this out of this special format? Is it giving me deeper insights into risks? Is it giving me better insight into potential delays to the timing? And then why wouldn't every other team want that same formatting if it's going to deliver that? Again, getting into that in that change management model. But at some point with all of these exceptions, you're not communicating, you're just feeding into that machine. It's reporting for the sake of reporting. It's bureaucracy.
Yeah. And I mean, ultimately, it's like I said, I think this is really timely in AI because we're starting to see a shift in the way we work from what used to be, give me the information I need so that I can make the decisions I need to make, to now, just give me the data and I'll ask questions of the data, and AI can help me to analyze that information, can help me to report on that information for myself. Yeah. And so if my questions are unique to somebody else's questions, the data is the same, but I am able to start to ask those unique questions and get the answers I need versus the answers that they need.
That's always that's the secret to all of this, is that by having that single version of the truth, having that data and giving access, then it's just a visibility into the detail of the project plan, whether they see into that or not. I mean, so if you have external constituencies that their visibility is only the status report versus, hey, all these other internal teams where there's no reason why you have tasks assigned to you are in there with, it might be read only, but you can get access to all of the detail of what's happening in Planner or MS Project or into the database, into the the CRM, into the cloud, the SaaS tool that we're using for whatever it is, and then let AI help you to go in and get those deeper insights and to put it in a format that you prefer.
Now, I am telling you, and when we talk about real life stories, I've been on numerous teams, but I was definitely at one organization for a few years where they were struggling with reporting. And instead of trying to identify what is the problem we're trying to solve and what information do we need to solve that problem, they legit hired an entire team of report writers who were dedicated to making all of these reports. And what ended up happening is that we had piles and piles and piles of dashboards and reports and information that nobody looked at. Yep. Nobody ever, like, they were all sitting there. And what's really funny is I would legit hear managers having conversations about the bullet point items. And I would overhear them saying, oh, I know they made a report for this. And somebody would say something along the lines of, I can't find it, or there's too many of them, or that doesn't answer my question anyways. And so they would have these conversations kind of offside that had nothing to do with it. And all of this time and money and effort was being spent on reporting that wasn't solving the problem and was just simply causing more overhead burden. And I've seen this at multiple places.
You know what's crazy about all this, Sharon? I mean, going back historically, where I working in the early to mid 90s in the data warehousing space, and it was so much effort to pull together the reporting, the analysis on that. And so you made sure that here are the questions that I need, here's the data that I need joined together to go pull it together to build the reports. And it took so long to build the reports. And so we wanted to make sure that we were giving them, what was necessary for that. What happened is that it got cheaper and cheaper and cheaper to store and retrieve, easier to retrieve the data, and massive amounts of data. And all this is that we got kind of lazy. And we just kept asking for different things instead of, when it was painful and was costly and people understood how hard it was, they were more thoughtful about what they would ask for. So we just need to, is that the secret here? We just need to, it's like let's make gasoline $20 a gallon. There's some people who believe this, so that we can solve all of the problems that come from the combustion engine. No, we don't want to do that. We don't want to make it get work done. We need people to be able to communicate, but sometimes it's, look, here's the report. Here's what we provide. We've agreed collectively. Here's the information that's most essential to drive decision-making and report the status, and then allow you access into the data to be able to go and ask questions, and using some of the latest, greatest reporting tools and AI tools and others, so that you can go and ask questions to your heart's content.
So speaking of, Christian, do you have any good stories or any good examples of where reporting has been set up in a way that's been successful?
Yes. I mean, I've worked for teams that had a model, and it was exactly what I described. It worked that way. So when somebody came in, there was a change, and we even realized the leadership team looking at, because I've run those teams where we owned all of the service. We ran the reporting for the executive team and provided that, and been able to go in there. And when they said, we're not seeing quite what we need, we have a change request for this. We need to investigate, will this give us the answer we're looking for? What if we did this? What if we had this? And so we would actually then go in, we'd model it out. So we'd kind of do a mock-up of that. Would this be what you do? And then we would go build to suit the mock-up and give them that answer. And the idea was that the leadership team at this organization could pre-read, and they actually pre-read. It was one of those where it was not good if you showed up not being prepared for those discussions. And we would actually table serious items that were urgent, but because the people bringing them to the table weren't prepared to have the discussion, and so their issue got tabled till the next one. But that's something where we had change control in place. We agreed collectively on the changes to it so that we could keep things clean and straightforward. This is one of the organizations that used a version of the 4-blocker format, so that they knew status, they knew risks, they knew priorities, next steps, and they knew asks. What was the leadership team being asked to make a decision on before steps could move forward. And so it was very clean. And what was great about that is they left about 2 hours for that meeting. And sometimes it was over in an hour because they had the data, they made the decisions, other things that were blocked on and needed the other teams to come back with more data. But it was very efficient in how it was driven. Now, I've worked with other organizations that were more sales centric. And again, there's constant tweaking to align sales and marketing data. And so that I worked in an organization where we had dedicated marketing analyst and sales analyst, 2 different roles, one looking at from the sales number and data and the client and the opportunities that are out there, the funnel of opportunities. I mean, you're familiar with this, how confident are we in this batch of customers to the next, lesser confidence there, to talk about projections for monthly and quarterly and annual numbers, sales numbers, and then looking at conversion rates and read rates and kind of all the other things that are marketing centric that feed into sales. And we were constantly making tweaks to the reporting for both of those things, but and then they would run. We'd make tweak. Okay, this isn't exactly what we see. What are we seeing here? Make adjustments, run it, see the data scale so we know that was the right thing. No. Let's go back to the old model, or let's move forward with this. So there was a constant iteration, but we were looking at it through the lens of data. What did it actually show us? Did it improve it? Did it make it more difficult to see that? And then adjust accordingly.
Yeah. I was just thinking about like some of the best, places where I've seen people do reporting, right? And I'm listening to what you're saying, and I'm sitting here thinking about some of the things. And I think some of the things that you said like are really great nuggets. First and foremost, I think being prepared. How many, you said earlier, you get kind of lazy, right? How many meetings do you see people show up to where they didn't look at it, they don't understand what's going on, and they're expecting you to like fill in the gaps for them? Or
it becomes a working session.
Right. It becomes a working session. But I think being prepared is a big part of this. I think if your team is prepared, having, like you said, one kind of source of truth, one primary place that you look. And I think a lot of people think that this has to be like a formalized dashboard or a formalized reporting system. Oh, well, you don't understand, Sharon. We can't have reporting. We don't have Power BI. We don't know how to do, SSRS reports. We don't have a reporting tool. I have been on plenty of teams where the reporting tool was, we pulled up Jira and looked through the tickets. Yeah. We pulled up Planner and looked through the cards. We pulled up a spreadsheet and looked to see what are the outstanding items. Right? I think when we talk about reporting, there's this kind of idea, this misunderstanding that it must be formalized reporting to be good reporting. And when we talk about reporting, I think, does it answer the question? Does it help people do their job? Does it keep everybody on track? And so I think when people are prepared and you have a single source of truth and everybody can look at it together, sometimes that solves way more problems than having a fancy, expensive, formalized reporting solution.
There might be nothing automated. I mean, when I talk about the first organization I worked with, when was that? Wow. So in the late 90s, like 99, 2000 was when I became familiar with the 4
We need
block
to stop discussing dates.
I know. But it was the first one where I saw in fact, that was because it was in our offices downtown San Francisco, and this 4-blocker format. And I'm like, hey, this is brilliant. Wow. And having run project teams.
Where have you been all my life?
And like this was great. And there was an executive who I had actually worked with at the phone company. She had come over as an executive of this company. I joined and was the director of project management or program management. And so got to do very similar roles that I had left and gone did that and worked with her before. It was kind of cool to go in and interview for this job for this company that was getting ready to go public. And the new CEO knew me first name basis, from working with her for a couple of years. That was For this rapidly growing company, venture capital backed company, it was a huge positive to have the CEO know you. So anyway, but yeah, it was learning about the process, but it was manual to put that together. But what it was is because they had come up with this model and it was so simple and clear. And if anybody tried to add additional complexity, they were like, take this out. Like, I want to know, what was completed. I mean, it was just the 4 quadrants. That's it. You couldn't add more to it. And so I might have, if I owned 5 projects, I'd have 4 slides with, for each of the projects walking through that. But for a leader coming in, they knew exactly, they could go right to bypass all the status if they need to rush and say, what do you need from me? And the bottom right corner, it was, I need you to say to fund this. I'm waiting. I cannot move forward until you approve this. Or we've made a decision. We want to hire the person. We're waiting for the authorization. Give me the authorization for that person. Otherwise, this stays where it is. And so they could speed up the entire process by just jumping to that quadrant and on each of those things and know exactly what we were asking for help on to move that forward. That experience of PowerPoint and, was it PowerPoint then? I'm trying to remember. Anyway, yeah, again, that was so long. I was wondering, it was like that. It was a slide. It could have been Corel Draw for all I know, but it was like that. It was a canvas with the drawing. I remember stretching out the line, building those, having a hard copy, a printout, and just creating mine based on that printout, and then getting some advice from a couple of the other directors. Here, do this. These are the types of questions you be prepared with this. Boom. And I just thought, this is fantastic. Having just come from an organization that did not use such simplistic, easy to read things.
Yeah. And I think that, it's just a reminder that, again, that it does not have to be, a polished, professional, tool-based anything, that ultimately the idea of reporting is that you're not only answering questions, but you're making sure that everybody stays on the same page so much that hopefully they don't have as many questions and they know what's going on. They know who's supposed to do what and where they're supposed to be and what's getting done. And I think, often in certain roles, this is more well-defined than others. And I think one of the big things in information and knowledge management type jobs, we are not as structured in our day-to-day work. And so that does create this need for more reporting, whereas the more structured you are kind of leading up to that, the less reporting you're going to need. So, and I don't know if there's any other kind of big tips that you would give people, but I would definitely say, for sure, be prepared and less is more.
Yeah. Well, thinking about strategies, how do you, what are the strategies you would apply? How would you implement that to simplify or streamline your reporting?
And this is going to sound kind of brutal, but if I was going into an organization, so if you hired me and I was consulting to kind of help you rework your reporting schema, I might even do something as crazy as to eliminate, just say, we're going to cut all reporting for a couple of weeks and see which things do you miss, right? Which reports actually move the business further, versus what reports are just being created to be created. So I think, ultimately understand what you've got and what your ultimate requirements are so that you can create the reports that matter and get rid of the ones that don't.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's which of these reports really drives a decision.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not driving a decision, it's background information. It's probably not worth producing.
Well, think about it. If you remove a report of any sort, any sort of a tool or report, and then people don't know what to do, they don't know how to do something, information is getting lost, then it's clearly filling a gap. But if you remove a report and nobody even notices it's gone.
Yeah. Well, a lot of reports are, I mean, that's the benefit, the joys of AI now. It's like, give me a one paragraph description of what this is, and then what decisions, what are they asking for? And, is it just an exercise in creative writing? Is it they just really incredibly wordy? Do I need all that background? Again, I appreciate a good report, writing a good report, reading a good report that has all the detail if I'm looking for that detail for the first time. But for
Less is
most of
more.
what we need, right, less is more.
Less is more. Consolidate, 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 consolidate. I mean, ultimately, if everybody can go to one place and find what they're looking for, that's a better choice.
And if it's, I just think it should be err on the side of execution. What's needed to move the project forward successfully? Or is it fluff? Is it background? It's, again, good detail to have back behind, but is it needed to move the project forward?
Yeah, agreed. And ultimately, I think, we've talked about this a little bit, but making sure that everybody kind of knows what's going on, participating together, providing feedback, and saying, hey, do we really need this? Right? Is this something that's helpful? Is it not helpful? I think if everybody is on the same page and everybody is using the same information and everybody's having the same conversations, you then are prioritizing your boundaries, you're prioritizing your reporting, you're prioritizing the needs that are around there, and you're protecting the time to do the things you actually need to do.
Right. Well, so much about this. I mean, good reporting, it answers questions. If people are asking more questions after reading through the reporting, I think it's kind of a failure. The system that you have in place is not working. It's good to ask questions about the business, but I'd say that I should know. A report tells me where things are, and where things need to go, and dates around that, and costs and people, impacts. I need to know resource usage. And if I'm asking other questions like, what is this? And here I having to, again, explain, what am I even looking at here? This doesn't make any sense. What is this driving towards? Like, you failed there. So it's call to action, I'd say, around this to kind of wrap things up. And I always like to call for a good audit at these things. But here it is, another opportunity for you to go in and look at the reporting that you have. How many are duplicated within a report? What can be streamlined? What can be eliminated there? What can be consolidated from those things to try and greatly simplify those reports, that data? We're not talking about a detailed report that gives the background and history and kind of all those things. It's valuable to have that kind of massive summary document of what it is you're trying to accomplish and why, and kind of all those things. We're talking about the more operational reporting that drives a project forward. Those are two separate things, and not to confuse them here.
Yeah. And we've said this multiple times, but maybe one place, one source of truth, and whether that's a self-serve source or whether there are some pre-created, options for reporting. I think ultimately having one place that everybody goes definitely makes a big difference in reporting.
I think everybody always talks about the one source of the truth. And, I know in our world that is SharePoint. No, but it doesn't matter what the technology is.
Doesn't matter.
But it's true. We need to.
Everybody should be working from the same thing.
Right. That's really, if it's a deck that has those 4 blockers that's in my OneDrive, that's one version. We're all working from that. It's shared out. It doesn't matter what technology platform that it's in, what format that it's in. It's just meaning that we're all working from the same data.
Agreed.
Well, excellent. I think it's look, there's so much more we can go into storytelling and side topics around reporting. And if we get into the technology, obviously we have a lot we can talk about it. If you have questions about that, Sharon and I both have a lot of depth of experience in that area. We'd be happy to talk to you or consult with you on that topic. But As always, you can find recordings for this episode, past episodes out on YouTube. You can visit us at youtube.com at Project Failure Files. You can also subscribe to our Substack newsletter at projectfailurefiles.substack.com. And thanks for watching. We'll be back next Monday. Same time. Another Monday.
Always on Monday.
9 a.m. Pacific every Monday for the rest of our lives.
Yep.
Till we win the lottery.
Yep. Maybe even after.
Yeah, maybe.
That just makes it easier.
If we win the lottery, we're shifting to 10 a.m., Sharon.
Fair. Okay. Deal. All right. Well, thanks for watching. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.